Hey, Kitty Cloud Academy. This is your website review. Of course, I'm Jono Landon, founder and CEO of Hubly. Hubly is an all-in-one enrollment marketing solution for private schools, preschools, daycares. So, as promised, I'm going to do a bit of a review on your website. I punched it into this website called websitegrader.com. It's it's a free tool online. I suggest if anyone's interested in checking out how their website's performing on a number of important elements, this is a good tool. So again, websitegrader.com. So kittycloudacademy.com is getting an overall score of 78 out of 100. So let's just kind of go through these sections here. So performance is, it's about mediocre. You got 13 out of 30 on performance. So if we go down to that section here, what we see is page size is 1.9, which is actually pretty good. That's a very fast page size, meaning there aren't, big, documents or images, things that take a long time to download when the page is, seen, somebody clicks on your link or something on online. That's a good thing, but page requests is 81. So that's actually a lot of requests, because request is something different. Request means that there's, when the page loads, there's a whole bunch of, code on the page that goes and requests things from the internet from different servers to pull down and display on the web page or run on the web page. So that's a little bit high. Page speed is 7.6 seconds. That's kind of slow for today's standard for sure. And that can really impact just, when people are doing a Google search and getting to your web page, or, seeing it on an ad or something, they click to it. So if a page takes a long time to load, that's just, 7.6 seconds can mean that you lose, people bounce off your site and you lose them. So you want to be careful about that. Page speed is really important. A couple of very technical issues: minified JavaScript and minified CSS. These are things that help with page speed. So you don't have those things, and that can certainly be good. On search engine optimization, SEO, you got a 30 out of 30, which is great. So it says, number one, you've got things are indexed, you've got meta descriptions, content plugins, and then descriptive link text. So what this is doing is looking at a number of elements on either things that people see or things that just Google can see when it's indexing your page. So you've got these elements. This doesn't mean, by the way, this is really important to understand. So even though your web page or your website has these technical elements that are good, it doesn't necessarily mean that the optimization for on a strategic level is right. So what do I mean by that? So there's search engine optimization that you do on a website on the technical side to mean, when Google indexes and looks at your web page, it sees things like a page map, it's indexed, there's meta descriptions, and a meta description means that, let's say you want, so when you think about search engine optimization, essentially what you're trying to accomplish is that when people go into Google and they do a keyword search that is relevant to you, meaning let's say preschool in such and such county, you want to be found, right? So by people looking for what you have to offer. And so the meta description, having that put onto the site, means if the meta description is on the web page, if you have selected a good keyword, meaning a strategically valuable keyword, and what that means, just to take a step back, that means that you have done the research or paid somebody to do the research to look at what keywords are relevant for you to be found on and people are actually searching for, right? It's not good enough just to use your own opinion as to what keywords you want to be found on. When it comes to this type of marketing, where you're trying to connect with your potential customers, your keyword strategy, the keywords that you want to be found on when people do searches, in that regard, your opinion of what people should be searching for is totally irrelevant. As much as it's wisdom, you might have a lot of wisdom behind that, and you might have a lot of experience, but the only actual opinion that matters is that of the people that are actually doing the keyword searches. You can't go into everybody's head and tell them what they need to search for. You have to just figure out what are people actually searching for, and then you want to optimize for those keywords. So let's assume you know that there are tools that allow you to look up and see what keywords that are relevant to you are being searched, meaning which ones should you be taking your web pages and optimizing for. So let's say it's preschool in Suffolk County. So if people are, if you can go into some tools and see, 10,000 people search for preschool in Suffolk County. So that would be a really good keyword to optimize, to create a web page that's optimized around preschools in Suffolk County. Because if you do that and you get good placement on that, you're going to get a lot of traffic. But if only 100 people searched for that keyword in the last month, well, that wouldn't be a strategically valuable keyword to place on your web pages. So you want to make sure that you understand where it's kind of, if you think of an analogy, it's kind of like driving. It's like you would want to put a billboard on a street that a lot of people drive on. You don't want to put a billboard on a street that nobody drives on, obviously, right? So think of it like that. Think of keywords are like streets, and when your web page is like the billboard. So you want to find the keywords that are getting a lot of traffic, and then you want to get a good placement on those keywords. I hope that's making sense. I always find it very hard to explain. I know I'm very wordy about it, so still working on saying that in a more concise way. Okay, mobile optimization. So this is great. So you got 30 out of 30 on mobile. That means that when people look at your website on an iPhone or any kind of mobile device, your website design responds to the size of the display. That's called a responsive design. It is really standard today. It's really critical. It has a really large impact on your search rankings. For instance, when people are doing a search on their mobile phone, if somebody's looking up preschools in Suffolk County on their mobile device, if your website is not designed to be optimized and respond to that display size, Google will not show it to them. It'll drop it, because Google wants to make sure that that any website they serve to people in their search results look good and help people find what they're looking for. That's what keeps people coming back to Google all the time, right? So Google knows they look at your site. When they're indexing your site, they check to see how it does on those displays. And so you've got that going on. That's great. Kitty Cloud Academy, good job there. Now we've got security. Security is looking problematic. You've got 5 out of 10 on security. So the good news is that you got HTTPS secured. So you have what's called a secure socket layer on your website. That means that information that gets entered into your website for any reason, when it goes from your website to the server, it is encrypted. So that's a good standard thing. If you don't have that, that's a big problem. But you've got another issue here. It says secure JavaScript libraries. So that's another thing that Google's looking for as well. So when you don't have, so let me just try to explain what a JavaScript library is. What that is there's these libraries that many websites use to make the website function a certain way. JavaScript is something that helps the website function in a certain way, and it can be visual elements, or it could be functional elements that create clicks or make things move around, what have you. JavaScript, it can do all sorts of things, and so what most people don't code this JavaScript. Most web developers don't, especially web designers, they don't custom code these functions that much these days. Usually what they do is they use a well-adopted JavaScript library, which is something that just speeds up the process. These things don't have to be custom coded anymore. That's why so many people can quickly whip up some great functioning websites. But there are ways to make sure that, like, those JavaScript libraries can be unsecure, and they can be vulnerabilities for Russian or Chinese hacker bots that can sort of use that vulnerability. They go into Google and they start searching for websites that use a certain JavaScript library, and there'll be millions of them that use the same library, millions and millions and millions of them. And then so they know how to find that security breach, which allows them into the site to do things like redirect your traffic to a less than wholesome location online, let's just say, which has happened to many people, unfortunately. And that's very embarrassing for something like a school, of course, right? So you want to make sure that your website is using, because most websites today are using these open source JavaScript libraries, but because they are open source, and essentially it's one of those things, the easier something is, usually the more challenging security is around those things. So it is important to make sure that these, and it would not take any half decent web developer much time at all to patch that vulnerability and give you sort of 10 out of 10 on your security on your website. Okay, so that is some of the the nuts and bolts of how your website is doing. Now I'm going to jump into your actual homepage here and just give you my 2 cents about the design. I'm less concerned about the look and feel, meaning your branding. Branding generally is not something that has an impact on your enrollment, because the name of your school, what your logo looks like, these are not important to parents when they're making an enrollment decision about a school. They're much more concerned about like safety and quality of education and environment, and the other the culture and things like that, diversity. These are the sort of big most important things. So when it comes to like, just to compare, as opposed to, like, let's say Coca-Cola, who is all about branding. Coca-Cola is the biggest brand that's ever existed, but they still spend over $7 billion a year on branding, because that's how their business, that's their customers. When you're looking at a wall of 100 drink options and you might buy a Pepsi or a Coke, like, branding comes into play there, and that's what influences their customers' buying decision. But your customers' buying decision, right? Your parents that are going through the enrollment process, couldn't really care less about how your logo looks. I mean, as long as it doesn't offend them, that's all that really matters. So I'm not too concerned about the artistic design choices here. I want to talk about I'll talk about some design elements that help some critical, important things. Like, number one, information architecture. What does your website say? In what order does it, how does your website prioritize the content on it? And is your website doing its job of driving the most amount of prospective parents to take the next step in your inquiry and enrollment process? This is the job of your website, right? So let's just take a quick look at your website. So I'm going to say a couple of things off the top. The text here in the top left, the blue text on the white, it's a little small and it's a little hard to read, and it's actually kind of wordy. So generally speaking, the first thing you want people to see on your website is a big value proposition that tells them they're in the right place. So again, think about somebody that maybe you're running a Facebook ad and they click on it, they come to your website, or maybe they do a Google search, they hit your website. You want them to first and foremost see the most important value proposition, right? Which should be an answer to their biggest problem in this realm of their life, meaning, so something that we see works quite a lot, works very well on landing pages, is a big question. Looking for the right child, looking for the right school for your child, question mark. That is like, bam, it's like it hits that parent. They're like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing right now. My problem is I don't know where I want to put my child, and I am looking for the right school for my child. And so that really captures the parent right away and says, hey, this web page has information uh, to solve my problem, the one that I'm feeling right now, top of mind. What you have here, very standard, pamphlet style website: home, programs, enrollment, drop-in care, news and events, parent portal, employment, contact us. So I'm constantly advising schools to stop using their website as if it's a pamphlet, because, so just to take a step back and say, why am I saying that? So pamphlets, like, let's say, historically, before, schools, you had websites, right? What would happen? Parents would find out about your school, maybe through word of mouth, or, they walk by it, they'd come in, they'd book a tour, then they would have a tour, and then the school would give the parent a pamphlet to take home. And that pamphlet really has to have a lot of information on it, because after the parent has come in, and seen, parents really get the decision-making information from the experiences, like coming in for a tour at the school, generally speaking. So that's where they gather the most decision-making information. Then the pamphlet has to have a lot of information that supports that information and gives them reminders, and really breaks down things like tuition and the process of enrollment and whatever paperwork they need to do, and blah, 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 blah. That's, so the pamphlet is really best used then, after the parent is much further along in the decision-making process. The problem with using your website like a pamphlet, which is, again, what almost everybody does, which is a mistake that I see across the entire industry. Everyone's kind of doing the same thing, unfortunately. The problem with doing that is that kind of information, decision-making information, is it's coming on too early when somebody is just checking out schools. Okay, so what I'm talking about is making sure your website is optimized for not somebody that really knows your school well. It's coming from word of mouth. You don't need much. Those people are like, if somebody comes to you from a word of mouth referral, they're like 90% sold. They're basically ready for an engagement ring. But when somebody's coming from an ad or a Google search cold, even if they're like a very well qualified lead, and they're a perfect fit for your school, and you want them, and you know that it would be a great match, they are at a much earlier stage. I use the analogy of getting married. Like, they're just going on a first date when they come to your website. They're not looking to make an enrollment decision. Your website, the purpose of your website is not to give parents enrollment decision information. It's to sell them on booking a tour, so that they can come in for a tour, and that's where they get the enrollment decision information. And then give them something like a pamphlet to take home after that, so that they can make that decision, even better, even more easily. But your website is not there. So really what you want to have on your website is you want the information to be 100% focused on getting prospective parents that are a good fit for your school to take the action of booking a tour. Your website is not there to sell your school. Your website is there to sell your tour. I say that like 1,000 times a day, but it's like my motto. Okay, so there's a bunch of different sort of things here, like that. I'm having a hard time really understanding what the priority is on this web page. Is it to, okay, so there's a, like, I'm just not seeing a clear prioritization. I'll say one thing that's really catching me as a big problem. It says schedule a tour today. Okay, so you've got this button down here, way down here. It says schedule a tour today. By the way, I find that very hard to read. That, first of all, that font is small. The font is hard to read, and the color of that text, of that text on this button, is really hard to read, because of the color choices. Um, and so what I will say is I would say the one really good thing about that button is that it's a color that really pops. The button itself has a color that's what I would call a primary call to action color, meaning it's really popping off the page. It seems to be the most, it's like the button that you're going to pay the most attention to. But you've got something competing over here, a new family referral program. So so here's another really big issue. On this web page, you need to decide, is this for prospective parents or is this for enrolled parents? This is something I'm also saying multiple times a day. Your website has to, a marketing website, a website in general, a web page can't perform multiple goals at the same time very well. So if you have one web page that has two competing goals, I mean, you're going to get poor performance out of both of those goals. One, it's not that one wins and the other one doesn't affect the one that wins. They both lose, okay? So this new family referral program is something that should not be on this homepage. If you want to use a web page technology to share this with your enrolled parents, what I see up here, you've got something called Parent Portal. That's where that information should be. You should definitely take this off of this homepage and make everything on this homepage exclusively about the one thing you want people to do on this page, which is book a tour. That's the whole point of your public marketing website, is to get prospective parents to book a tour, full stop. There's no other thing you should be trying to do on this. So COVID-19 parents information, again, it looks like it's competing with your goal of getting people to schedule a tour. So what I would do, a couple of things I would do right away is I would put this kind of wordy description. If it's really necessary, I would drop that way down. I would put this big red call to action button, schedule a tour, right up here or somewhere that's like really like the first thing that people see. And I would replace, I would actually, the first thing I would do is make sure that there's a very clear value proposition right at the top that tells prospective parents that you're in the right place if you're looking to make a choice about a school, okay? So again, something that works really well is the question, in big title font, looking for the right school for your child, or, do you want your child to fall in love with learning? Questions are really good because they're engaging and they make people think. So I would really, replace that. And I would put this like sort of not off to the side. I would make it sort of across the whole top. And I would strongly advise you to remove anything on this page that is not driving people to schedule a tour. Take this button and I would put it like, if there's a big title up here, like looking for the right school for your child, talk about some bullet point value propositions, that like sort of the high level value propositions that your school offers, not too wordy. And then right underneath that, I would place the big call to action, schedule a tour today. But I would change the design of that. I would get rid of this kind of like handwritten type font that's small and hard to read. I would make it much more clean, clear, and I would probably put, if you want to keep with that red primary call to action color on that button, which is a good one for this page, I would make that font white. I would make that text just straight, flat white, so that it's like unmistakable, unmissable. You want people to be able to scan this website in a glance and understand what's going on. Right now, there's a lot of small font. There's a million different things to look at and understand. And the most important element of this website is really buried down here, and it's competing with things that are put at the same or higher priority. So think about information prioritization. I'm happy to answer more questions about that, but this is my take on your homepage. You could make a lot of very quick, small adjustments that will have an incredibly positive impact on the performance of this page to generate inquiries for enrollment. And I hope what I'm saying helps. I hope it resonates with you. And again, post in the comments or whatever if you have any follow-up questions or if you think I'm crazy and you think what I'm saying is wrong, I want to hear that too. Let's get the discussion going. So thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for offering up your site for a review. And in any event, I hope everyone stays safe and healthy and has nothing but lots of, relaxed, easy luck with their enrollment, and everybody gets back to full and has a nice, healthy waiting list. So good luck, everybody. Stay healthy.